So I will officially call this budget workshop of the Blackstone Millville Regional School District School Committee to order a little after 5 on the 21st of January. And our purpose tonight is solely to do budgets. And so I believe we are going to turn the microphone over to Matt tonight.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you everyone else, and thank you to those of you who will be joining us, at least our recording of this presentation. So once again tonight, we are having our budget workshops so that the community can hear about the budgets that have been created at the school and cost center level. And this evening we have the middle, high school, and our athletics department. And we will kick things off with our middle school budget presentation, and I am going to try to present my screen, so bear with me if there's any kind of technical errors, but
okay.
Do I have that option to present?
Jesse would have to do that for you, which he can.
Matt, I just made you a co-host, so you're all set.
Great. Let me. So that be under more. Where am I going to? I'm not in full screen right now. Give me 1 second.
You should see it at the bottom. You
Yep.
see.
Yep, I do now that I am in full screen.
Okay.
Great. Can people see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, I can. Yep, perfect.
All right. Tanya, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can Mike actually we're used to Mike going first.
Oh,
So that's okay. I'll go first, but he was going to speak on behalf of both of us. So just some connection to the middle and high. So I don't know if he wants to do that now or when he does his part.
It's perfectly fine. I am not trying to throw a wrench in your presentation, so I will click over to the high school.
Okay.
And we will have Mr. Dudek begin.
All right. So we're looking at a blank document, but if you scroll all the way down a little bit.
I'm getting it.
Page. All right. Perfect.
What, blank's not good? We can do blank. No money for anybody.
Blank works.
I suppose budget season is the only time we want to hear blank or nothing.
Exactly. Well, welcome everybody. Good evening. Thanks for having us today. I didn't have to go first, but we didn't want to break tradition from the last 3 years. So thank you, Tanya, for allowing me to talk. So what I just wanted to remind folks was that our budget process was collaborative. All of our documents from last year in terms of our budget were shared with staff members for input on what they need for supplies and instructional materials. So that's what you'll see, that there's a summary of everything that was requested. And from there, Tanya and I met with Dr. DeFalco, Mr. Aronworth, to review some of those items so that we would be ready and ready to present for tonight and to the community. So again, between the middle school and the high school, you will see that there is similar alignment. I know it's not uniform with what elementary was able to do, but we were looking at some alignment that we had between high school and middle school, so that you'll see some resources aligned with career development, STEM initiative, as well as some enhanced technology that we'll be talking about a little bit. Additionally, you will see some staff requests for additional supports and enrichments for all of our students. So what you see in front of you is on the left column is existing materials, new materials on the right. I'd like to just start off with our project Lead the Way curriculum and supplies. So Biomedical Science Pathway, which we started this year. Are you guys hearing an echo?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yep.
All right. Okay, that sounds better. So again, the biomedical science pathway is, we had a $70,000 grant that was awarded to us last year. And we are well on our way for the first course. And so what we're looking to do is sustain that and extend on another course for next year. So this year's course for Project Lead the Way was on primarily looking at the forensic side. Next year would be more of the anatomy and physiology. So we're looking for $10,000 for to supplement that. You'll also see an engineering pathway, looking for a $7,500 district cost to that. I'll be happy to inform everyone that we were accepted through the phase 2 process of Project Lead the Way. I finalized that grant last week, and we will be hearing whether or not we'll receive a pathway for engineering in mid-February. So that's $7,500 right there. In terms of technology, you'll see that there's some technology that we are like to hold on to in terms of IXL, Virtual High School, Naviance, Newsella, and on the right you'll see some additional licenses here. One is that Nearpod school license, and I'm sure some of you that are educators or just are watching your children online see Nearpod. But it's just a collaborative tool that has a bunch of formative assessments in it, that has polls, collaborative boards, game-based quizzes, and it really gets students just engaged in presentations that they're getting online. So we wanted to do a Nearpod school license at $4,500. That also includes 8,500 videos and lessons that teachers are able to get. And right now we're just doing a pilot free license. So we like to engage in that as well. The Adobe Creative Cloud, we're looking at 500C license for that. That is $2,500. And that would align to industry standards. That would include updated versions of Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. It has 20 plus apps, desktop apps for photography, design, video, and web. So that would really enhance our integrated technology along with our music program as well. Virtual High School, you'll see that both Tanya and I are looking to add additional seats. So that's 300, so it'd be 3,250 for 10 additional. And then finally, just another piece of technology, Soundtrap, is something that Todd Schaefer has been using and piloting. And again, with COVID, a lot of the ed tech companies have provided a lot of free software, and now there is some upfront cost to that for next year. So that is just some of the technology that we're looking at. In terms of history, you'll see that there's a psych textbook that we're looking to update. That textbook that our teacher uses is from 1999. So there was a request for that. Looking at our science, this isn't, so that $10,000, I just wanted to sort of break down a little bit of what that may entail in terms of the cost. So there's some vernia probes, clay models for the anatomy courses, Sherlock Holmes bones kits, and then there's just a bunch of consumables for human body systems, which is the second course that we're looking to offer, along with additional consumables for the principles of biomedical science, which was added this year, and we're looking to extend for next year as well with a new cohort of students. Looking at our math, you'll see that the math supplies here is aligned to a staff member that I'm looking to bring back for next year. So there's some business accounting supplies of 2,000 and some intervention supplies. I know the elementary school talked about some gaps in our curriculum and learning, and having a math intervention specialist / business teacher would definitely enhance the math department there. Looking at art, technology, music, there's just a few things that I just wanted to highlight, but in our video media, there's some microphones, controllers, memory cards, and background paper that they're looking for our video and photography courses. Scrolling down, you'll see next is our music. This would be more for our music courses and not the extracurricular, but there's a tuba, lease to own, percussion supplies, and some music repertoire. Robotics and manufacturing. I know Tanya is going to talk a lot about 3D printers and having that, but filament is really important for a lot of the supplies for that, along with in the manufacturing piece, and this will be aligned to Project Lead the Way, looking at a sliding table, floor dress press, starter bundle kits for robotics, and drive shafts. So that will replace some of the older shafts that we have, and then also be able to supplement some of the robotic kits that we are using with a lot of our students. Graphics, ink is a lot of money. Vinyl materials will go along with last year's vinyl cutter that we got. And then in fine arts, you'll see that there's a lot of other supplies, terracotta clay, brushes, writers. This year, our art teacher made everything individual for all students. So she's used a lot of materials for that. So we're just looking to replace that. The health and wellness is looking at Ed Fitness program or platform. It's instructional videos and personalized approach to fitness. They've used that last year. They're looking to extend that for this year or for the following year. And then finally, our foreign language, you'll see that there's some curriculum resources, a lot of technology pieces, but our Garbanzo reading resources is it's a language platform that combines, because I did an observation where one of the teachers was using it in the class, but it's an interactive storytelling platform that makes language a little more comprehensible. And when we think about language fluency and acquisition, we felt like that would be a really important piece for the curriculum. The other piece about the comprehensible classroom training, that is some training for proficiency-oriented language instruction, which the 3 teachers are really excited about doing. So that's a PD to replace the national conference, the ACTFL, that they did last year or this year. And then looking at staff for the high school. So we're looking at replacing or bringing back our business math intervention teacher that we had from last year. So that was cut from our budget. Also a wellness and PE teacher, along with the ELA and intervention teacher. So when we think about just rationalizing, we're just, again, looking to minimize supervisorial duties for teachers. We're looking to enhance the interventions and the supports that we can give to our students, along with some electives. And I think the business or the math and ELA could be a mix of both enhancing some electives, but also providing that intervention that's much needed. And then along with bringing a PE wellness teacher back in the mix at the high school. You'll see one final piece just under the existing staff, you'll see what the enrollment looks like for next year. So Matt, I don't know if you could scroll a little bit.
That means scroll down for you.
Scroll down, yeah. Okay, so in the blue, you'll see it looks like that we'll have an increase. I mean, there's a class of 12th grade. There's that's graduating is 94. So I'm sorry, it's not the class of 2024. It's a class of 2021. It's 94 students, and then we're bringing in hopefully the 9th grade level 110. So there will be a slight increase in the enrollment. So that's what I have to present for high school budget.
So Mike, I have a question, but I need Matt to scroll down. So the extra 10 seats for the virtual high school,
Yes.
that's 10 just to add on to the high school, or that's 10 between the total of the 2 schools?
No, so that would just be 10 for the high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the vinyl, there's like $500. There's $500 that was in last year's budget for vinyl, and then you want additional $500?
Correct. So we had a vinyl cutter, so that was the machine.
Yeah, but if you look, so there's vinyl. Matt, you went too far. Lordy, I'm gonna. get dizzy. So there was a vinyl cutter, and then there was $500 of vinyl materials, and then there's an additional $500 of vinyl materials?
So last year we had the $700 vinyl cutter with $500 of materials. This year, or for the upcoming year, we're looking for $500 of supplies to replace the materials used.
But wouldn't, so Matt, this is a question for you. Wouldn't that, well, once you find the vinyl, then we'll be good.
So
Keep
a little
going.
bit further down. A little bit further.
So
I
there's
have the vinyl materials for 500.
right on that side, but then go a little bit further down.
Oh,
They're not
sorry.
aligned, Matt, so you have to
apologize.
kind of make,
So see how, nope, you went too far. Go, yeah,
It's a-
right there,
yeah.
just freeze. See on the left side how there's vinyl materials, $500?
Yes.
That was in the existing. So wouldn't that still be there?
That
It would be.
I'd have to double check whether or not the number Mike is using is the total for that item or if it is the additional. Mike, do you recall, you might recall that specifically better than I do. Did you put in $1,000 for that or did you?
No, I put in 500.
Okay, so it would just be another 500. It's not in addition to the existing 500. It's just replacing the materials similar
Right,
to what we
but it
did.
would already be in the budget because there was 500 in there.
Correct.
Right, okay. Okay.
And then my apologies, I forgot the one other piece at the very bottom. It was looking at department heads. So as you know, we had department heads at the high school for quite some time, and we haven't for the last 3 years. But I will be advocating, for a minimum of a math, ELA, science, and history department leader. Again, I think having department heads or department leaders provides direction, resources, oversight. To ensure at the academic, the programmatic, managerial, fiscal responsibilities that we need for those. And those department leaders, I would imagine, would be working closely with our learning coach. Learning coach, I think, is dealing more with the pedagogy, instructional practices, and I think these department leaders would be doing more content specific. The reason why we went with those 4 is that they're aligned with MCAS testing, but also some DOE requirements. So we added the history in there because there's that civics service learning component that we've been working on for the last couple of years. So that would definitely enhance the team with 4 department leaders. My apologies for that oversight.
Does anybody have any questions for Mike?
I do. It's Erin.
Go ahead.
With the staffing request and based on what you have listed as existing staff, is this under the assumption we're returning to a 7-period schedule?
I would assume so, but we haven't had an in-depth conversation about that.
We're not running a block schedule next year. I can answer that pretty pointedly, I think.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if it'll be exactly 7 periods, or if there'll be an adjustment to that, but we will not have a block schedule.
So adding in department heads, just remind me, do they get 1 extra prep per day or per week? I don't remember what the...
It's 1 a day, and what we're going to actually be doing is asking the committee at a later date to, assuming that these positions are approved to restore, to have a MOA with the Unit A to redefine those responsibilities. Because right now in the contract, they have a period that's 1 period, teaching period less than their colleagues. So we're going to be looking at creating a different model for that.
For department heads?
Yeah.
is there also a dollar amount on that, or is it just an extra prep?
$17.50 or something like that. Yeah.
Stipend.
And I mean, that's kind of the issue. That would, and then similarly with the middle school team leaders, frankly. They get, the extra time and they get the money, and the money should be for time outside of school day. And you certainly can make an argument if you need the time outside of the school day for teaching a full caseload. So we certainly understand that, but we need to have a conversation with the union about redefining that. I do think that, and particularly at the high school level, the 4 department leaders need to be working very closely with the instructional coach, marrying the teaching and learning practices with the content area. These individuals should also be leading and be very much part of the instructional leadership team, and should be on the curriculum, review and renewal committees when their content comes up. I think we really need to reset the responsibilities, but it's a subject of collective bargaining, so we need to be able to do that with the union, with the school committee's permission.
Jason was correct with respect to the cost. It was $1,750 per, and that's in the contract. That total addition was $7,000 into the budget.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? So I'm hearing, working with curriculum, working with to better meet students' needs. Who represents special ed on this list? Or does Jill serve that role, or does the team chair serve that role to have those conversations about how to meet students with special needs in the curriculum area?
Yeah.
And
Jill,
can you elaborate more, Tammy? Because I'm not
So
sure.
I'm a department chair, so special ed is represented in my school. So I attend all academic council meetings because special educators tend to need to know certain things. So I'm wondering if these 4 content areas teachers are meeting with coaches, who represents special ed there?
There is specifically a special education coach, as opposed to the other coaches, which are general education. At least in practice right now, she is definitely serving in a curriculum capacity.
There's a separate coach. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, you kind of have to jump in because I can only see 4 people when there's screen sharing. So, all right. Do you want to go on, Matt?
Certainly, with no further ado.
Yes.
We thank you very much, Mr. Dudek, for your presentation.
thanks, Mike.
We will move on to the middle school budget presentation with Mrs. Kurt Horde.
Hi, good evening. So Mike did speak on most of it, so I'll just get right into what I have for my budget. It's still working to align with the secondary level and what Mike is offering at the high school. So the IXL district subscription, the ones on the left are ones that we already have. So the Newsella is shared with the high school. We only have that at the secondary level. The middle school only had Edpuzzle Pro that we would be keeping. We had a Brain Pop subscription. Actually, I'd not asked to keep that for this year, as well as the Jognog. And the VMS goes to the very one on the top. So on the right-hand side, what we're looking to do, those VMS are shared. So we have a discounted rate that's shared with the high school because Mike has a staff member that's doing a VMS program or being a teacher for them. And then this is the additional cost. I'm sorry, Matt. Yeah, thank you. So this would be 10 additional licenses for just the middle school. This would be so we can start to add back the offering to our 7th graders. Currently with the 20 licenses, it's only been enough to offer to 10 28th graders, 10 in session 1 and 10 in semester 2. With the career grant that we received last year from ASA with the $100,000 grant, only 30% of that money could be used for supplies and materials. The rest of the money is towards the curriculum work and the professional development of the staff. So we're looking for to purchase more EV3 Mindstorm robots. These are they're actually called Lego ones. So what we have with these and also the Wksp is that the students, we don't want them just programming and learning how to program the robots, but actually making them. And you can't make them in one class period, disassemble them, and somebody make them in the next class period. So we need to have enough kits for students to be able to make them, program them, and go through the whole process from starting with a pile of pieces to actually creating something that moves, can pick things up and move it around. Mike has also talked a little bit about 3D printers. With the grant, we were able to add to our printers. So we have 2 MakerBot printers right now that were actually donated when I arrived here. They were donated by the PTO, and at this time, we've used them so much. We need to have some of the replacement pieces. So we definitely need filament because when you print on the 3D printer, it uses this filament to create what you're printing. And then once you've used it, that's it. So it's really like a consumable. And we're also looking for the extruders for the MakerBot. It's been almost 4 years now that we've owned these 3D printers. And so the extruder is the piece in the middle that actually the filament comes out and creates your piece. And you eventually have to replace those. And then the filament would also be, when we purchased the Ultimaker this year, we received professional development on how to use that. All the science teachers and our STEM tech teacher was trained, as well as Mrs. Tasker in the library, since she helps a lot with making sure the filament goes into the machine and helps with the printing of it. But eventually that filament is also going to get used up because we plan on using these devices much more than we've used in the past. What we're looking to change from the Jognog and that Brain Pop that you saw on the left is to get Generation Genius subscription for science. This cost would be for the entire school for all students and all teachers to be able to use. It's all standards-based videos, readings, and assessments that they can easily push out through Google Classroom. And it's something that would help to supplement the curriculum that they're doing. The students of the history civics curriculum, we're looking to have some more pieces online. A couple of years ago, we had purchased, when we first moved over to the civics curriculum, the We the People books, but we only had purchased a class set of 30 consumables. So this online access would allow the civics teachers to be giving some more and having other civics curriculum instead of constantly going and finding their own resources and materials beyond the We the People book. The Padlet Pro, so this was one technology piece we wanted to add for the whole school. This is one that has been used quite often by all the teachers, and we're wanting to be able to continue to use this. It has a lot more functions. So I don't know if many people know. So within Google and within Google Meet, when you're meeting virtually like this in a Google Meet, you have access to what is called a Jamboard, which is kind of like a whiteboard on your screen. Students can put things on it. The teacher can put things on it if she allows them to. And so we're wanting to use Padlet Pro because that has many more features than what this Jamboard that comes within the Google Classroom. You're able to put things in columns, put links, embed videos right into it. Students could be assigned different columns, and it all works within Google Classroom. For instructional supplies, we're looking to add materials on vaping, caffeine, and healthy eating. We did, have some things about vaping, but we're looking to have some more materials, and we really don't have any materials about hands-on things for students that have to do with caffeine and healthy eating. For PE, those costs this is just for some consumables and a couple of new games we're hoping to add. So we have some scooters, and at this point, many of them are needing to be replaced. They've been here before I've been here. We haven't replaced any since I've been here, and they're used constantly. Not so much this year, but they have been used all the time. Even when we have socials, when we had socials with students after school for night things, we would always use the materials that are in the gym. And that was one of the pieces that the students love when we have our socials is just like having an open gym. And the scooters are always the first thing to go off the shelf. We're looking to add some noodles. This is pool noodles, not noodles you eat, so that we can do some tag-based games, but in a safe way. And then for disc golf, we've been wanting to do something with golf, and this would be more of an easier and less costly than getting golf clubs for students. So those are all of the materials. The next piece would just be for existing staff. So for the 6th grade, you can see we have 6 teachers right now. For next year, actually, if you don't mind, Matt, could you go to the bottom with the class sizes? I probably should have had that at the top. Back up a little bit more. It was in the middle, yeah. A little. So before COVID, these would have been the incoming numbers for next year coming into this middle school. We have a huge bubble coming in. Well, we did pre-COVID of 160 students. Then it was 125 in 7th, and it would have been 143. If you go up, Matt, just a little bit, we have COVID numbers. So all the numbers have gone down about 10 to 12 students. But I know that there are some that opted for like homeschool for just this year. So we will be getting some of those students back. So we are expecting 148 students in the 6th grade to come back. Well, that's what we have right now, and 111 and then 133. So with the 6th grade, we are looking to, right now I had a 0.4 history teacher. I'm looking to shift that position to be a 0.4 humanities teacher for 2 teaching periods. What we've done is double up the humanities because we did not want to lose teaching content time between the ELA and the history classes when we combined them. So for double periods and the teachers have 5 teaching periods, we would need 12 blocks due to the amount of students. And that would be 6 sections of 25. With the 2 teachers, we would only have 10 teaching periods. So that's why we're looking for the humanities to take those 2 teaching periods that currently are in the 7th and 8th grade and shift them to the 6th grade. With the class size next year, most likely would not have a flex team of the 7-8. It would just have 1 team of 7th grade. And the world history, we currently have that, as I said, the 0.4 there that's helping with a world history course and a civics course. So even with the world history, if we only had 1 world history for the entire 7th grade, you're looking at about 22 students. For the 8th grade, we're looking to have that flex team be just 8th grade. So technically it would be 2 teams of 8th grade. And while we have 2 teams, we still only would have 1 civics teacher. And that would be approximately 27 students per class in that class. The other classes would be smaller sizes. So then the instructional coach, that's the same, and it's shared with the high school. The reading, the specialists there, those are all the same except for the reading specialist. Currently, right now, we have a 0.5 reading specialist, and due to the literacy needs and the needs we're seeing and we're expecting post-pandemic, we're asking to go from a 0.5 to a 1.0. So to help us with our reading needs. Currently, I'm sharing a reading specialist with the complex. There you see what our rotation staff is, PE, wellness, Spanish, art, STEM tech. We have adjustment counselor, guidance counselor, and then there's what we have for special education and paraprofessionals, and those would all be the same as last year. Yep, and then I think there should be other staffing. And those are all the same as what we currently have.
So Tanya, what's actually the brand new staff?
0.5 reading. And I'm looking to keep the 0.4 for history spot because that was going into this year, that was looked at for this year only.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have questions for Tanya? So I have a question. A lot of the programs and a lot of the ones that Mike talked about too.
So
Our
the
program,
staff listed under
whoops,
the,
wait a minute.
You're talking about the technology programs?
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Are you guys trying to see the technology actual like platform programs up top, or are you talking about programmatic instructional programs?
No, so for me, I'm not sure where Aaron was going, but for me, a lot of the programs like the Nearpod and the a lot of the computer programs, the Padlet Pro, a lot of those subscriptions, I would say are essential given a COVID environment. But how do you envision that the learning will be different, assuming kids in a classroom versus kids remote?
So there's a lot of other programs teachers are using this year. We only are asking for ones that we would make use of and could use within the classroom, being back in person. That doesn't have to do with what we're doing right now. So Padlet Pro, it can be used in school, in school, out of school, as a way to have students be working in groups and doing group work, even in person. That's not something that there are quite a few out there that may not really be used after COVID.
Right.
At the cost. So that Padlet Pro cost that's a school license. So every teacher has the professional version and the students would all have access.
Aaron, you had a question.
I was just trying to decipher. I think I figured it out, though. The new materials staff, I at first glance, everything listed, so I was confused. But we did move.
Aaron, you're breaking up a lot. I don't know if your microphone is not in front of you, but you're not.
We moved a PE teacher from high school to middle school this year.
Correct.
Right. That's why Mike has on his, he's looking to add back a wellness PE teacher. Down a little bit more, Matt. Mine is on there I had it this year, so I'm going to continue with it. That's why Mike has the ask of the additional staff at the high school.
Anyone else?
Did Ms. Vanaco have a further question on that, or are we just not? I didn't know if maybe it was
I'm having trouble with my connection, so I'll write my questions down. It was.
If you want to put it in the chat, I can read the question for you.
Yeah, I was just going to recommend the same thing. If you want to put questions in the chat, that works too.
I don't know what we'll do when we no longer hear robot voices.
Or say, you're muted. You're
yeah.
muted.
And wave until everybody's off the screen.
While we're waiting for Aaron, does anybody else have questions for Tanya? Oh.
Oh, let me just type to her then that I can read the question for you.
Okay. Well, if that comes up, we can revisit it but if there is no one else, I will turn this back over to Matt to continue next.
Great, thank you. And up next, we have our athletics program with our new athletics director, Robert McNulty. And
Hi, everybody. As Matt mentioned, I'm Robert McNulty, the middle school and high school athletic director. This being my first year in the new district and trying to learn more about the school during COVID, it's been a little bit challenging. So I did my best to try to come up with a budget that fits the needs of the athletic department. I watched the budget meeting last night, like Todd, with the music department. A lot of uncertainties and changes have occurred in numbers due to COVID, which made planning, especially being new to the school, a little bit difficult, but here it is. So a lot of the stuff I already know from my other school department is we'll have a lot of expenses that are constant and the fixed costs for the athletic department that happen yearly. One of the positives of this year is that a number of these projected costs went down for this year, but hopefully with us hopefully returning back to normal next year, a lot of these expenses will go back to similar as in 2018 and 2019 when we had complete seasons. Under new materials, so Matt's kind of showing the list. A lot of them are just fees with MIA and middle school and assigners and our conference and stuff like that. A lot of those are just basic fees that happen every year, and typically they don't change too much. Field lining has to be done for soccer and football, field hockey, and baseball. And then we just have game balls, equipment, medical supplies, uniform cleaning. Football has a lot of mandatory stuff with pads and reconditioning and helmets that have to be done every so often. And then hopefully we get to put a lot of banners and plaques and varsity pins to our student athletes in the upcoming years. So under new materials, you'll see some of the stuff I know was throughout the first two seasons. And reviewing the uniform cycle, I did notice that there was a lot of uniforms that were either skipped in the cycle by not being purchased in the cycle year, or one way or another.
Great. Okay.
A lot of the uniforms don't seem to match what I have on paper, which is kind of a problem. It's a point that uniform cycle, once created, is stuck to year to year. Some years it might be more expensive because you have to buy more jerseys, and less expensive in other years because you have less jerseys in that cycle. But I've tried to work on developing a new cycle that would help for years to come. And if Matt, you can slide up a little more, you'll see the sports that are kind of due or were passed or one way or another need to become, or we're going to be in the cycle next year. I mean, it's a big ask to have them between this year and next year to have all those fulfilled, but there is some benefits to that with a higher incentive rebate through other vendors if we do go that route. If not, we'll just have to make sure that I can create a cycle that needs to be stick to just for equality reasons, and also falling for Title IX requirements that all of our sports are treated equally, and that there's 4 or 5 year cycle that the cycles maintain and that all sports get it within those years that we plan on having them. The next expense is important one for our field hockey program is the goals. They've been damaged based off of the elements. This year there was a couple of strong windstorms that knocked them down one way or another, and there's one that's completely unusable because of it, structural damage as a result, and other ones the frames are pretty bad. They'll be tough to maintain and have for weather conditions. So in addition to new field hockey goals, I'd like to propose a storage area for outdoor sports, whether it be a container or a new structure that will help store these essential equipment for our programs for outdoor sports, and will help maintain the condition of the equipment so we're not buying new ones every year or having new property that's damaged, and just maintain the stuff that we do have and keep it in good shape so that it's stays as new as possible for our student athletes to use, and that they can take pride in our equipment. The next item is just an informal part. I know this is part of the capital budget, but not part of the athletic budget, but years in the track, it's in the condition, it's starting to wear a little bit, has been in place for a while, and you'll notice some wear and tear. It's becoming visible. If you don't make these repairs, it will present safety hazards for our student athletes and our community members that use the track. And in addition to addressing this, if you're not addressing this in the next year or two, you'll see higher costs in repairing and replacing the track. Will probably be a necessity if you don't replace it in the next 2 or 3 years.
Robert, if you don't mind, I just want to cut in briefly, as just for the committee's understanding, to be very clear. There's no intention of just putting this cost into the budget either this year or next year. This is definitely something that will be discussed as part of that capital planning project, and this will move forward to our capital planning subcommittee. So I just want to be clear about that.
Thank you, Matt. And so the last item on that list was soccer clips. A number of them are missing, and they'll just need to be replaced so that we can properly put the nets in. And there's also noticeable wear in the nets for soccer. As a result, there's a few of holes in each goal, which could help, which could have some balls go through, which doesn't help matters. And both of those will need to be replaced. Luckily, they're not as much as replacing the whole structure. And then I listed down the number of existing staff that will carry over to next year, hopefully. And similar to existing materials, these will hopefully be utilized as we return to school and everything is back to normal. However, this year we did see some staff not be needed, so that's another plus for this year. Most notably, with no fans, unfortunately, police detail isn't needed, so we saved I think it was $3,000 that was budgeted for the year, so we saved $3,000 by not needing this expense this year. And other notable items, though, next year we're hoping that our coaches do return, and from this you'll notice stipends raising and some additional expenses in our coaching staff in a positive manner, though. And then also every year, the official fees go up about 3% increase per game, so that you have so many games, there's a lot of games hopefully next year, and we'll see a slight increase in our official costs. And then finally, I don't know what the athletic director position will look like next year, but I would advocate for a full-time position. I think it's important for the community and staff and district to have proper leadership that can commit the time necessary to successfully run the program. And then I'll take any questions, I guess.
Anybody have any questions for Robert?
I can also go over.
Tammy does.
I can also go over some of the numbers too. I didn't really put them in there. Some of the numbers for student athletes this year, we saw 21 for field hockey, 18 for soccer, 19 for boys soccer, 15 for boys middle school and varsity. There was only 2 cross-country runners that participated for high school cross-country and 8 middle school girls. So one of the things I am looking into is trying to find a co-op next year for probably cross-country, just because of the low numbers. We kind of did that this year unofficially with Northbridge, just because of what it was, and it seemed to work out good. I talked to with both our coaches, and they agree that arrangement worked out good this year. And then right now in boys basketball program, we have about 36. Girls basketball, we have about 22. Boys ice hockey, there's 8 that participate in the co-op with Bellingham. And then the rest of the numbers are just kind of predicted off the last couple of years, which is kind of hard to predict. But one of the benefits of this year going into next year is that we don't have too many seniors that will be losing that participate in these sports. So we'll hopefully gain some of those middle school students that will come up next year and maintain and have stronger numbers next year. And hopefully participants are more willing to do it without the hazards and all the risks that's involved with this year and participating in athletics. And I can take a question, Tammy. Sorry.
That's okay. Jane, are you good?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so could we have a breakdown for a future time on what the rotation of uniforms has been? So that when we're trying to kind of make the decision of what stays and what may go, and not saying that something will go, but just saying that we can have an educated conversation about that. Because I think
I already started preparing it. It's in the folder that I shared with you, Matt, if you want to try to pull it up.
Okay. I mean, we don't have to review it now. I think it's just helpful for future conversation.
I could definitely talk to you guys about that too.
Okay,
And
because
kind
I
of do
think
the
the
outline.
concern, Robert, I think the concern is if we replace a bulk set now, that means we're stuck in every, whatever the new rotation comes, those will all come to it at once again. So somehow we've got to get, even if if we didn't do some, then that's on us to make sure we catch up. But at the same time,
So
I'm concerned that we would do too much at
yeah,
once.
so one of my reasons behind that is
Robert, just give me 1 second, please, if I may. Matt and I had that conversation with Robert that we would not be doing all of them next year. So FYI, that's that would not be the exact reason you just stated. That would not make sense.
Yeah, it just doesn't, going forward, like,
Right.
and it's sad to say one team might have to kind of suck it up, and I don't want to be the one who decides that team, but it's like somehow, and I appreciate that you're working on a rotation, because somehow rotation has to work so that we're consistently, replacing, or else we've got to get into the, making our own uniforms, I guess. I don't know.
So along with the rotation, I see here that boys soccer is budgeted for this year. So it seems, and we don't have solid numbers on athletic, but it seems like what was budgeted for athletics this year should, I guess we could see it later, but the number budgeted probably is less than the number spent this year. So why wouldn't we try to get some of these, like we've already budgeted for boys soccer, so why don't we buy them this year?
So there's plans on buying that. And then that's part of my reason too, is that we're saving money this year. Hopefully that we're not having as much expenses this year. So this is actually the perfect time to invest in that jerseys and then have it for this year and next year, kind of spending it all on these two next year and this year's budget, and then start that cycle. So you're really not having additional costs until the other year, and then split those up where it makes sense. So once you see the uniform cycle that I created, it'll make more sense probably, hopefully.
Okay, I mean, because I think if we, while we're saying we're saving money in athletics, we also know we're losing incoming revenue from athletics at the same time. So I don't know what the balance there is, but if that's budgeted, I think that's why you need to see what was already purchased in that and see if there's something we can get this year, which would then continue to the cycle, and then we don't have the 8 teams at once, which just is, I don't foresee any year that that's going to ever happen in this district, or any district for that matter. So just trying to see if we can get ahead of it by using some of those funds that we didn't spend this year on those uniforms.
So I can say, as Robert mentioned, there is a uniform cycle. Robert, I apologize. I'm not seeing it right now. If the
it's all right. I can explain it because I have it right in front of me.
Share it. Robert, it would probably be best that we can make sure that we get a copy of that, and we'll share it out to the school committee. And then if there are questions that follow, then we can certainly respond.
Yeah,
that's the problem with, I think, the old cycle, that there was, just looking at those old cycle, that there was years where there was supposed to be 8 jerseys at the same time, eight teams that were supposed to be replaced at the same time. And then I'm pretty sure that's probably what happened that year, was that it just didn't happen. So some of those teams lost out on jerseys, which
that's
Yeah, I mean,
we will definitely send to the entire committee the revised schedule. Tammy, to your point.
yeah, I mean, as a athletic parent, typically what would happen is we'd replace the varsity stuff and the JV would then get that, or it would go ship down to the middle school. And so there was sort of a internal cycle as well of uniforms, but that would just be helpful for us. And I think, Matt, just knowing the differential of what was budgeted and what's been spent so far to see if we could squeeze, similar to what we do at the end of the school year, of trying to kind of foresee what we could buy in this budget versus next budget.
Absolutely. I'll set up a meeting with Robert and we'll review that, make sure that we're analyzing what we can spend this year to make sure that we can get as much as we can what was on the schedule. Additionally, we can also look at the possibility of using some savings. Like Robert mentioned, if there were some savings with respect to police details that we did budget for this year, then we could possibly roll that into getting some additional uniforms just to make the cycle a little more palatable moving down.
Mm-hmm. And the storage, Robert, is going to replace the beautifully painted purple monster in the parking lot.
I would say that you could probably even utilize that still. I mean, that currently has all the track stuff in it.
So it's just not big enough for what we need, you're saying, though?
Yeah, depending on how big you make it. I mean, if you want to make just another small one where you can put the field hockey thing, but right now there's no space. And
so has the field hockey, the current goals, they're left out year round? Is that part of the problem?
Yeah.
And they can't be stored in the school anywhere? Not
that I'm aware of. I mean, even the athletic closets, if you look at all the athletic closets, they're pretty full with a lot of stuff.
I think Jason has some room in his office.
I'm thinking a room. Like, I think we don't use all the rooms, but I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong.
If there is, I would like, there's the space in between the lockers that I've mentioned, but I've been told that the custodians use that for their thing, because there's like a garage shed in between both the lockers in the back of the building, but I guess that's full too. So there's a lot of stuff that's full, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions? Carrie.
What is the average cost of uniforms for a team? Like, when we're talking about budgeting for multiple teams, what is the average?
So I just did a quote for girls soccer, boys soccer, both varsity and middle school. If we did all at once, it would be slightly under $6,000. So you're looking at probably around $1,500 for each program. Obviously football is probably the one that would be the most, just because the numbers are like 3 times the normal size of a program.
And how many uniforms is in that $6,000 quote?
So that one, there was 30 for each program. So it'll be 60 uniforms. That's home and away. So 2 sets.
And that, did you say that was basketball?
That was soccer, boys and girls.
Oh, soccer, sorry.
I think it would be important to get new soccer jerseys for both programs. So that would probably be that priority, just because we're having the middle school program next year instead of a JV program. So the sizes will be a little bit smaller. You'll have a little bit smaller jerseys, just because, just face it, the 6th grade is smaller than a 12th grader.
To our point before, Tammy, I believe that given any of the savings this year, we should be able to, I'm not committing right now, but I do think that we should be able to make that entire purchase for the soccer teams this year, as we were hoping to.
And I haven't bought the jerseys for the boys soccer, even though it was scheduled for this year, because I came in last minute. I didn't know that they needed to be replaced until midway for the season, so it didn't make sense to replace them. So I just held off, and like Matt said, I wanted to see what we could do for next year and make sure that we have the proper uniforms that will be in a good cycle.
Anyone else?
Jane, if everyone's done, Erin did type a question to me.
Oh, okay.
Good answer.
Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay, so Erin's question was, so what I had explained, the humanities in the 6th grade. So humanities is intertwined of ELA history, and we don't want to lose the class, instructional time that if it was separated out. So that's why we've doubled that into a, it's kind of a block. So that's 2, but that doesn't mean we're staying in a block schedule next year. So that's what she was wondering. So no, the teachers have 5 teaching periods. And we would not have the A and the B day. We would like to revert back to our pre-COVID schedule.
Wouldn't we all?
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya.
I agree with that, Tanya, especially the middle school schedule.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, I mean, I think the middle school, it wasn't just all of us trying to, at every grade level, understand what hybrid means.
yeah.
I don't know who created that, I don't think they were in education. So, but it was not only getting used to hybrid, but then we also did the AB to try to limit the number of classes per day students were having, especially like when we had to go full remote, they weren't carrying seven courses like what happened in the spring. So we would not be doing that A and B day moving forward next year.
I actually have a question that goes back to the tuba. How long does it take to own a tuba? How many years?
So actually, funny you should mention, Todd shared with me today leasing options for the tuba. So I would put this to the committee. I don't have it in front of me, but the full out cost of the tuba was around $4,400. To lease the tuba, they gave a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, and 5-year option. The 4-year option was slightly over $1,000 per year. I believe it was about $1,300, which is slightly over what we were putting in for the budget already. I did say to Todd that probably would be the option that would make the most sense. Even the 5-year was still over the $1,000, and it was a little bit of a more payment for the interest. So it's that toss up between laying out the whole $4,500 up front or paying a little more in interest.
Do you lease to own, or you lease to lease and then the lease goes on forever and ever and ever?
I would have to confirm with Todd, but my understanding from the way that the paperwork looked that he sent to me, it's a lease to own.
Okay.
Matt, is this another tuba? I thought we bought a tuba last year.
Or at some point we did.
We welded the tuba. We never did buy the tuba. I thought
Wasn't
we.
there money but there was money in the budget to rent or lease or something a tuba. I thought I saw that on the sheet.
On last year's column, it says lease to own tuba year 2.
But I mean, I could speak to that because I did ask Todd about that, and he said that there were some issues with the company about leasing. So there was never, I don't think they used that money for any sort of lease agreement for a tuba.
Then
They never
what
did it.
happened to the money? Then where did the money go?
It stayed in the budget. It wasn't spent on anything. It wasn't expended. Mike's right. Matt and I also spoke with Todd about the same thing. When we saw the tuba resurface, we asked, I thought we already had a tuba, and he said they never moved forward with it for the exact situation Mike had just shared.
I think we were trying to buy it on eBay or something at one point in the budget season last year, right?
I don't know. I just know the tuba keeps coming into our lives.
No.
We may have been looking at eBay. Todd is relatively particular about the tubas that he gives to the students. In fact, that's actually why the delay. They changed brands of tubas that they used for the company that he was using, and then he needed to find a distributor for the tuba. In addition to the quality of it, I believe there's also the matching of the sounds and how it blends into the rest of his instruments. So I don't know that eBay is going to do the trick.
And this is for a classroom teaching tuba, not a marching band tuba. That we're-
So all their instruments, Sarah, just, I think I can answer that. The school owns certain types of instruments that kids start on a smaller instrument and then they would grow into a lot, like they don't start on a tuba in 5th grade or 6th grade, but they learn that from other instruments. So they are school-owned tubas. They would be using them in band and in marching. They're used in multiple musical ensembles, I believe, just like the school owns drums and the school owns, the kids don't carry those, but the drums are used for concert band, they're used for wind ensemble, and they're used for marching band. So the tuba would be the same piece. It would be used in the daily classroom and it would be used in marching band.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay.
I think
I just want to add, I think we're on the
aggravating me
3rd
now.
year. Yeah, I think we're on the 3rd year of talking about the tuba. I think
Yeah.
the first year they pieced it together. We didn't approve it. I think it was approved last year. I don't know that we were ever informed that there wasn't one to be purchased, like to be found. But that probably was pandemic time.
We didn't inform the committee.
I don't.
We didn't know about it till we went
Yeah.
through this year's budget, and we all kind of perked up at the same time, and like the tuba's back. I thought we took care of
Tuba,
that.
yeah. I think this is the 3rd year.
It's just one of those things that stands out in your mind. Like if we saw the
Right, yeah.
otoscope or whatever Jane's favorite science tool is.
Oscilloscope.
Oscilloscope, that's right.
We still didn't get it. We didn't get it.
I know, I'd rather have an
Oh, we
oscilloscope.
got an oscilloscope. Didn't we?
Oh, we
we got
do?
one last week, one,
I
Mike.
believe it's in
Want a
there.
presentation.
I believe
You
it's there.
presented to the school committee.
You did get it? You did get it? Oh, we took
Listen,
that.
and I had to do a Google Voice to know how to pronounce that. Okay, so I will take that with me.
We did get an oscilloscope. I am positive.
Okay.
We want one of Mike's
Jane?
final things before he leaves the district is a picture of that for our
I was
perusal.
just gonna say that. Jane wants to see
I
it.
want a demonstration of the oscilloscope. I don't even know what it does.
But I remember a discussion about getting the funds for the oscilloscope, and then Mike was sharing, he said, oh, I'm not sure the teacher is going to be able to use it at this point. And I said, he's using the oscilloscope. We spent like 3 meetings on it. So that's how I remember we have an oscilloscope.
I think we were between the oscilloscope and the string for the snowblower at Millville.
Oh, my God.
We went with the oscilloscope.
We did not do a snowblower. I do recall that. String for another year.
Totally worth it.
Is there anybody else with any of the other? Do we have somebody else, Matt? Or that's that for tonight?
That is it for this evening's budget workshop presentations.
Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for the work.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very helpful and nice and early, which is good. All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Tammy, seconded by Tara. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.